Hey, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Watang Yu. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. This is the first day of a 5-day course, and I'm teaching that's titled Harmony in Relationships. I'm going to help you guys to understand the teachings of the Buddha as it relates to building harmony in your relationships. Because in the unenlightened state, when you haven't trained your mind to the point of enlightenment, you typically have a certain amount of disharmony in certain relationships, whether it's your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, maybe all of these things, co-workers, bosses, all of these kinds of situations. You can oftentimes struggle. And what people usually think is that the problem is the other person, and they're usually trying to fix the other person. But what the Buddha brings your attention to is that what you need to do in order to get to harmony in your relationships is work on your own mind. It's not about blame or fault or anything like that. It's about just understanding that your mind needs to cultivate the wisdom of how to have harmonious relationships with the people around you. And when you first start in this world, you don't have that wisdom. Nobody's really taught you that wisdom necessarily. People might have taught you how to clean the body, but they haven't necessarily taught you how to clean the mind. And that's what the Buddhist teachings are here to help you to be able to do. So I'm going to be walking you guys through a number of things throughout the week to help you guys build harmony in your relationships, because that's really rewarding to have harmonious relationships with all the people around you where you can be at ease and your relationships can really be blossoming. It's a wonderful experience to be able to have the confidence to go into a relationship and just know that you have what you need in order to be able to make this relationship really wonderful. So we're going to start our class with a meditation, which is what we do each individual class session. I'm going to be starting with some chanting to ease into the meditation. Then there's going to be some guidance. Then there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to first introduce you to the course so that you can understand what it is that I'm going to be sharing with you all week long. Then I'm going to be teaching you the Eightfold Path. You're going to need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, in order to get to enlightenment and also in order to have harmonious relationships. For some of you guys, this will be a refresher. For some of you, maybe it's the first time that you've learned it, but you're going to need to actually revisit this teaching multiple times. So that's why it's part of every course and every retreat that I teach. That's going to take us all the way through our mid-morning break. Then we'll come back and I'll teach you finishing up the Eightfold Path. Then we'll take a lunch break for about an hour and a half. Then we'll come back and we're going to learn the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots. So this is our plan for today. And then I'll help you guys to understand the rest of the course after our meditation. So if you'd like to join for meditation, take whatever position is comfortable for you. I'm going to get started with the chanting. You're welcome to join in. And then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu manutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusram Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here, you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in through the nose, experiencing the entire breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath. cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Emakewa Potang Mahakewanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Emakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Emakewato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone online as well. What I'm going to do here is just introduce you to the course about what it is that I'm going to be sharing with you over the next 5 days. And then I'm going to go into our first talk, helping you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. So this course, we meet each morning at 9 a.m. and we usually finish up right around 3. It just depends on each day is a little bit different. I will definitely start at 9, but we sometimes finish a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. It just depends on what's going on in the course, but this is the general hours of the time that we're going to be together. This is my contact information. If you guys would like to get in contact with me for any reason, it's more so for after the course as opposed to during the course, because if you're here during the course, then great, I'll teach you. But if you're not coming, it's okay. You don't need to check in with me. I'm not taking attendance or anything like this, so no worries about that. But after the course, if you would like to contact me for any reason, this is the ability for you to be able to do that. And you'll find this information on our website as well, because in order to develop harmony in your relationships, you're going to need more than just a 5-day course. You're going to need guidance throughout your week, throughout the month, throughout the year. You're going to need to get in touch at some point. So you're always welcome to contact me through any of these methods. And then in terms of the way the course is structured each day, we start each morning at 9 a.m. with some chanting and meditation. You guys are welcome to join in on that. What we're going to typically be doing is loving kindness meditation in the morning. You'll see tomorrow morning I'm going to teach you loving kindness meditation. And then from that point forward, we'll be doing loving kindness meditation in the morning. And we'll be doing the chanting along with that. Then around 9:30, I transition over to sharing the teachings of the Buddha, because you're not going to be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. There's other things that you need besides just meditation. So I'm going to be teaching you guys certain things that you need to be able to learn in order to be able to train your mind and be able to develop harmony in your relationship. Some people would refer to this as a Dhamma talk. I think of them as discussions where I'm sharing information with you. You guys are getting an opportunity to ask questions and get clarification. And, we usually do this up until our mid-morning break. Our mid-morning break is usually around 10:30 to 11, somewhere around there, where you guys can use the bathroom, get some snacks, talk with each other, have some time to yourself, whatever it is that you would like to do. And then we take a lunch generally around 12. Again, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, just depends on what the day is going on. And then at each time we go to lunch, I'll let you know what time we're coming back from lunch, but we normally come back right around 1:30. And then from there, I'm going to be teaching you some more things in the afternoon with some meditation as well. We'll be doing breathing mindfulness meditation in the afternoon, and then there'll be some talk that I'll be sharing with you. And then we'll generally finish around 3. This course is based on these chapters of our first book of our book series. You can actually get this for free if you like. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions by reimbursing us for that here at the temple. We use those funds to purchase new books, or you can order it on Amazon. I'm going to be teaching you chapters 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, and 15. That's about half of this course. The other half of the course, I actually haven't written any books about it because it's very challenging to write books about developing relationships because there's so many variables involved. If I was to write a book, it would seem like, okay, if this happens, do that. And if this happens, do that. That's not the way building harmony in your relationships is. So about half of the course, I've never written about it, but all the slides and everything that I'm using here, you can actually get it from our website. If you go to buddhadailywisdom.com and click on free books, you'll see a PDF of all the slides that you can print out as a workbook, or you can have it on your device. There's a print shop right down the street that will actually print out all the slides for you, so you'll be able to get all the content that you like. But these are the chapters that I'm going to be covering in the book. This is the first book of a 13-book series that you'll probably spend a lot of time with. A lot of students that have been studying with me for a long time, they tell me that they've read this book 8 or 12 different times. And each time they read it, they glean some new information from it. So this is a book that you don't just, plow through one time and you set it aside. It's something you're going to be referencing and reading multiple times if you're interested in getting to enlightenment. These are the topics that I'm going to be teaching. This morning, I'm going to be teaching you the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. You're going to need to know this teaching backwards, forwards, left, right, up, down. You're going to really need to understand this teaching really well. So oftentimes students are learning it once in a particular course, but then they're revisiting that multiple times in the various courses and using the various materials like books and audiobooks and the videos, the podcasts. I even have a study guide that you can use in order to be able to study this. Then this afternoon, I'm going to teach you the 3 poisons, because as part of the Eightfold Path, you're going to learn the 4 Noble Truths, which gives you like a little window into the unenlightened mind, really penetrating into what's going on in the mind and why you're experiencing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. But the 3 poisons will really broaden that for you and deepen it. Then tomorrow, I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings and how to essentially almost go in and surgically remove them from the mind so that you can analyze your mind and then go in and almost surgically remove them. Because in order to be able to get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to understand how to identify your cravings, desires, attachments, and how to eliminate those. Then I'm going to teach you something called the Brahma Viharas. These are 4 healthy mental states that are actually antidotes to certain symptoms that are in your mind. This is where the Buddha gets the reputation of being like a doctor, because there's like a certain symptom that you can see in the mind, and then there's a certain prescription that you apply. But you are your own best doctor. You don't need anybody else to tell you. You would need to learn this and cultivate the wisdom, but then when you see the symptom, you can actually bring in the prescription, and that's what you'll be able to have as part of that talk. Then the real focal point of this class is to be able to understand what is true love. Oftentimes people don't understand what true love is. They're misunderstanding love. Right now, if you think love hurts, or you think love is painful, or if you're falling in love or out of love with people, you're not understanding what love is yet. And this is one of the reasons why you have disharmony in your relationships, that you're not actually practicing true love yet. Because once you understand what true love is, you can't fall in love and out of love with people. And you'll figure out that love does not hurt. It's actually not painful to love somebody. But if you don't understand true love, you'll think in that way. And then because of that, you'll have disharmony in your relationships because you're not actually practicing true love. So I'm going to help you guys to understand love without attachment. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice in a world of the unknowing, having relationships with people who aren't practicing these teachings. Because it's really wonderful to come to a place like this and learn about how to be loving and kind and warm and gentle and all those things. And then you go out into the world and maybe some of the first conversations you have are people that are being bitter and harsh and hostile with you. How do you deal with this kind of situation when your parents or your siblings or your life partner isn't practicing these teachings? I'm going to help you understand that. Then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you, because this is what's actually causing you to have disharmony in your relationships, is that you're actually attached to your parents or your siblings or your life partner, your children. And this is why you're struggling in those relationships. Or maybe with friends and acquaintances, you don't have any issues in those relationships. You can be just fine, but it's these other relationships that you really struggle in. And it's because of the attachment. So I'm going to teach you how to eliminate your attachment in these relationships that you're really close in. Then I'm going to help you to understand how to share the path to enlightenment with children. If you have children or you're thinking about having children, of course, this will help you. But even if you're not ever interested in having children and you don't have children, this topic will actually help you, because maybe you're interested in sharing the teachings with a friend or a family member or a niece or a nephew, or maybe a coworker or something like this. This is going to help you to understand how to share the teachings with other people, focused on children, but it can actually apply to other relationships as well. Then one of the important parts of the path to enlightenment is cultivating healthy relationships with a life partner or friends. So I'm going to teach you how to choose wholesome friends and a life partner without judging people, without looking down on them, because who you choose to involve in your life is going to determine what you experience in your day-to-day life. If you're making unwise choices about your friends and your life partner, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So I'm going to provide you some guidance of how to choose wholesome friends and a life partner if that's something that you're interested in. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice the teachings in the workplace. If you were learning these teachings that I'm sharing with you and you were only practicing them in your personal life, you would actually never experience the peace and the joy of the enlightened mental state and harmonious relationships all around you. You're going to need to also practice these teachings in the workplace. So I'm going to share with you guys how to do that. Then I'm going to teach you what's called the art of the friendly no. How to say no without saying no. Sometimes people might come to you and say, hey, can I borrow some money? And maybe you don't want to let them borrow money, and you say, no, you can't borrow money. And now next thing you know, you don't hear from that person for the rest of your life. The relationship's over. Or someone might invite you to a party or like a housewarming party. And they say, hey, we really want you to come to our party. And you really don't want to go. And you might say, no, I don't want to go. I'm not going to come, or something like that. And now you don't have a good relationship with that person. So in order to have wholesome relationships and maintain relationships, you're going to need to learn how to say no without saying no in these kinds of situations. So I'm going to teach you that. In terms of meditation, we're going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation, and then I'm going to teach you loving kindness meditation, and we're going to be doing that. I teach breathing mindfulness meditation as part of our foundational course, but in this course, we really focus on the loving kindness meditation because that's helping you eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions, like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike. Right now, if you have dislike towards others, it's actually coming from your own mind. Or if you have this negative self-talk where you're degrading and diminishing yourself, maybe looking down on this being who you are, you can eliminate all of that. You don't need that negative self-talk in your mind. And this meditation is going to help you get rid of all of that. You can do this in the seated, lying, and standing positions, the loving kindness. And then the breathing mindfulness meditation, there's also a walking position. And we're going to be doing Buddhist chanting as well if you guys are interested in doing that. Then at the end, I'm going to teach you how to receive continued support on the path to enlightenment and how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life, so that that's where the real benefits come from, is by taking what you've learned here and integrate it into your day-to-day life. So do you guys have any questions on what it is that you're going to be learning throughout the course? No questions? Okay. So I'm going to move into this first teaching, which is the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. In terms of getting to a point where you're having harmonious relationships, you're going to need to train your own mind. And this is actually the guidance from the Buddha of exactly how to train your mind. Getting to enlightenment means that by the time you're enlightened, your mind will be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of that is eliminated. You'll experience harmony in your personal and professional relationships, where the relationships will really be blossoming. They'll be at ease, because in the unenlightened state, you have a certain amount of bitterness and harshness that's coming out, and it damages your relationships, and all that stuff just comes back to you. So you can get to a point where you have harmony in all your relationships, but it's going to start with training your own mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, you can't even be in a bad mood any longer. It's physically impossible. So this eightfold path is the path to enlightenment. The Buddha is giving you 8 individual factors of how to train your mind to be able to move it to this enlightened mental state. One of the ways that I think about the eightfold path is I think about it like 8 dials. If you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you might tweak these 8 dials in order to try to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. You can actually tweak these 8 individual dials and your mind will perform more and more optimally. But you need to know what those dials are. This is essentially the way that you're going to purify the mind and train the mind and clean up the mind. When we were growing up as a child, people taught us how to clean our body, but they didn't necessarily teach us how to clean our mind. And if you didn't understand how to clean the mind, then of course you walk around with stress and anxiety. Of course you feel guilt and shame and fear at different times in your life. But you can actually eliminate that. Just like you learn how to clean the body, you can learn how to clean the mind. So I'm going to walk you through each of these: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I'm going to teach you using the original words of the Buddha. And I know that sounds pretty obvious when people are studying with me, and I usually say that. It's like, well, of course, how else would you share the teachings of the Buddha if you weren't using his original words? Well, you'd be surprised to know that there's countless places in the world that consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, but they don't actually study the original words of the Buddha. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that shares the original words of the Buddha. And if you do the math, that's less than 1%. So the vast majority of what you're going to see in the world is actually not the teachings of the Buddha, because people aren't studying with his original teachings. Whenever you're learning, if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, you would like to be studying with the original words of the Buddha. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. This eightfold path is organized into 3 sections, which is the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and then the mental discipline section. I'm going to walk you through each one of these. And as we go, I'm going to be pausing at different times. You guys are welcome to ask questions. That's part of learning, is to be able to get clarification. We have microphones here in the white bowls that if you guys could get a microphone, that'll be helpful for the people online to be able to hear you. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions you like by unmuting your microphone. So here's the first factor of the Eightfold Path, the path to enlightenment. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here in this particular teaching, what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that is right view. What he's pointing to is a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. And what I did here is I put the top section of the Four Noble Truths so you could draw the correlation between the Eightfold Path, where he's talking about right view, and the Four Noble Truths. Because the Four Noble Truths goes on from here, and you can build confidence that, yes, what right view is the Four Noble Truths. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is the very first beginning teaching of the Buddha, where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding why you experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. This is the very first teaching that he would share with every single student. And in order to be able to understand the teachings of the Buddha, you need to be able to make sure you're not believing any of the teachings. There is no belief here in his teachings whatsoever. You need to learn, investigate, and examine his teachings. You need to reflect on them to verify if they're true or they're false. And then you need to practice his teachings. That's what's going to lead to you cultivating wisdom. wisdom. So when I share with you any of the teachings throughout the entire course or any other time that you study with me, it's important that you don't believe anything that I say, but instead you learn, you reflect, and you practice. And I'm going to show you how to do that here with the Four Noble Truths, because you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's actually causing your discontent feelings, so that then you can actually fix it. So in order to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you the three universal truths. These are truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true, but you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're not interested in believing any of these teachings. So here's the way that the teachings of the Buddha work: is first you need to learn something intellectually. I'll share with you this first universal truth, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths by the time we get there. So this universal truth of impermanence, you need to understand it intellectually first. Okay, so here, what you need to be able to understand is what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you the way the world is. By understanding the way the world is, you will navigate the world more peacefully. And what he's teaching you is that the world is impermanent, that it's constantly changing, that you're going to notice that things arise, they change, and then they fade away. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it is all impermanent. It's constantly changing. These are called conditioned objects. Conditioned objects arise, they change, and then they fade away. Then there's something in the world called unconditioned objects. An unconditioned object does not arise, it does not change, and it doesn't fade away. So enlightenment is that way. Once you get to enlightenment, it's an unconditioned mental state, that it doesn't arise, change, or fade away. It's permanent. The same thing is true about the natural laws of existence. The natural laws is what the Buddha taught. Those are the natural laws. They haven't changed. This is the reason why his teachings are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws don't change. They are actually permanent. They're unconditioned. But everything else in the world is a conditioned object. It's impermanent. Everything around you, anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. So now that's the intellectual part. It took me all of about 2 or 3 minutes to explain it to you. But you don't believe that. You just kind of understood it intellectually. Now what you do is you move it into reflection to try to verify if what I shared with you is true or if it's false. Because if it's a universal truth, you should be able to independently verify this yourself. So here's how you do it. You take things that you're familiar with, and you look around the world and you try to determine whether or not what I just shared is true or false. Because I just shared with you, everything around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. Anything you see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. So take something like this physical body and ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it's exactly the same and it's never changed, or that it's impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and sperm came together, it's been constantly changing, right? We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We have teeth that grow in, because when we were first born, we didn't have teeth. Right? And then when teeth came in, that's change. And then those teeth fell out. That's change. And then new teeth came in. That's change. Then we started getting cavities. We start growing hair, and then we cut our hair, and then we grow our hair, and then we cut our hair. Sometimes we lose our hair. We get wrinkles and pimples and moles and gray hair and all these other kinds of things, right? Everything's constantly changing with this physical body. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life, your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, then that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Constantly changing. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? What's that? Horrific. So it's going up and down and up and down, right? It's constantly changing, right? Some people's goes up, up, up though, right? Some people's goes down, down, down. That's change, right? Either way, it's change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's snowing, it's raining, it's sleeting, it's tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, blizzards, sleet, hail. All these things are just constantly changing, right? So we could go on and on and on like this. And if that's what you need to do, you should, because you need to go around and independently verify this. When you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. Here in Thailand, some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. That's impermanence. Sidewalks here in Thailand, sometimes you have to go like this, sometimes you have to go like this. They're not flat and smooth, right? That's all impermanence. Things are constantly changing. You look at a tree and you see green leaves in the tree and you see brown leaves on the ground. That is impermanence, right? You look at the wood planks on the floor of the temple. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, some of them are one color, some of them are a different color, right? This is constant change. This is what you're going to see in the world around you. And this is a building block once we get to the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so you need to deeply soak this into the mind and be able to see that, yes, this is a universal truth. The world is definitely impermanent. Then there's the second universal truth. I refer to this as discontentedness. If you studied in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used here. I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching, but I'll share with you what the Buddha was teaching here, and then I'll come back and help you to understand why I don't use the word suffering. So here, the Buddha is explaining to you the unenlightened mind and what the unenlightened mind experiences, that it experiences conditioned feelings. What a conditioned feeling is based on some condition, you will then experience a feeling. And that feeling is either going to be pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. These are the three types of feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences based on some condition. So the pleasantness is the happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. That's what the mind experiences based on some condition. So if you look outside and you see it's sunny outside, it's like, yay, it's sunny. Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to go hiking. This is going to be so great. I just can't wait to go outside. And now you're so happy based on the condition that the sun is present. Now the mind is going to experience that happiness. But the problem with this is that it's not permanent, because if you base your feelings on the sun is not permanent. So now when it rains or it's doing something else, that's where the painful feelings come in. That's where there's sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, or some other painful feeling. That's also based on a condition. It's a conditional feeling. Then there's feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. That it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or maybe if you're sitting on public transportation and somebody you don't know comes and sits really, really close to you and your body's touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe your mind is just kind of uncomfortable in that situation, right? That's displeasure that the mind is experiencing. It's neither painful nor pleasant. So this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before the unenlightened mind experiences some discontent feeling. And these are what's called conditioned feelings. So in the unenlightened state, you'll wake up in the morning and you'll see it's sunny outside. You'll get so happy and excited because maybe you want to go hiking. You want to go outside and play. You want to go ride your bike or whatever it is. And now you'll be so happy that it's sunny outside. And you'll go take a shower. And when you come out, it's raining. And now you'll be sad or frustrated or angry or irritated. This is because of the conditioned feelings. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is basing its feelings on some impermanent condition. And as long as your mind is doing that, you'll never get to permanent happiness. So what an enlightened being does is when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience happiness. And now when they see it sunny outside, it's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to go ride my bike. This is outstanding. And now they go take a shower. And when they come out, it's raining. And it's like, oh, okay, it's raining. Well, I guess I'm not going to go ride my bike today. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book, or maybe I'll go to the mall, or maybe I'll invite my friends over and we'll have some food. You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't based on the sun. So when the sun's gone, you can still be happy, right? This is called unconditional happiness or unconditioned joy. So in the unenlightened state, your mind's going up and down at different times. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond that. You're beyond that into the unconditioned happiness and unconditioned joy. So this is the reason why I refer to this as discontentedness, because the Buddha talks about the unenlightened mind having these three feelings: pleasant, painful, and neither painful nor pleasant. If you use the word suffering here, then it only explains the painful feelings, like sadness, anger, and all those other feelings. You probably say you were suffering when you experienced those. But if your boss came in and gave you a raise and they said, hey, I'm going to give you $100,000 a year more in your paycheck, you've been doing a great job, and you got really happy and excited about that, would you say you were suffering? Probably not, right? Or say that person comes and sits close to you on public transportation and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? So the suffering only explains the painful feelings. That means you're missing the pleasant feelings and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. That means you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha is teaching you on this important topic. You're missing 66% of the teacher's teachings. So how could you ever get to enlightenment if you're missing 66% of the teacher's teachings, right? So I encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because you need to be able to see these conditioned pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. It is very intuitive to think that you need to eliminate anger, sadness, frustration, stress, anxiety, and all these other feelings. That's very intuitive. But when I tell people you're going to need to eliminate your happiness, your excitement, your elation, they're like, I don't know if I'm interested in getting to enlightenment. Well, you're eliminating the conditional excitement that you can only be happy if certain conditions are met. That if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, if I have this much money in my bank account, then I will be happy. So your happiness is shrinking because it needs all those conditions met in order to be happy. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're understanding that conditional pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because in order to get to unconditional happiness or unconditional joy, you've got to eliminate conditional happiness. That's temporary. It's displeasing. If you're not willing to let go of the temporary pleasure, you'll never get to the permanent happiness and the permanent joy. So you need to be able to see these temporary pleasant feelings that are conditional is just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditional pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. For example, if you got a brand new job and you got so happy and so excited about that brand new job, maybe it's the best location, it's the best salary, the best company, the best title. Oh, you're just so excited about that job. You just can't wait to go in there and do a great job because you finally got the dream job of your life and you're so happy and so excited. Well, that job is not permanent. So if you allow your mind to get conditional excitement, that means 3 years later when the company goes out of business and you don't work there anymore, you'll be angry. You'll be sad. You'll be frustrated. So you need to be able to train your mind to not experience conditional happiness so that way you can get to the unconditioned joy, the unconditioned happiness. Okay? Does it make sense to you guys? I'm going to be stopping here in a moment and opening up for questions. So you can independently verify this here, just like you did this universal truth of impermanence. You know that your mind is unenlightened, and the Buddha here is describing the unenlightened mind. So ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you experience that don't fit into one of those three categories? And if you think so, let me know when we get to the question period and we'll talk about it. This one down here, I apologize, you can't see it. We just need to kind of adjust the projector a little bit. This one says non-self. This is the universal truth of non-self. I'm going to explain to you guys what this is, because this is the third universal truth, and you'll need to ultimately know this. I'm going to introduce it to you here. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. But let me first explain to you the problem before I explain to you the solution, so that you'll understand what this is. The problem that the Buddha discovered is that the unenlightened mind has these 10 individual pollutions. They're called the 10 fetters. These are the pollutions of the mind. They're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and they would keep you confined into a certain field. This is what a fetter is: the shackle, the chain, and the ball. So when the Buddha discovers these 10 pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because they're keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, continue to experience the anger and the sadness and frustration over and over and over and over and over again. So the very first fetter or pollution or taint in the mind is called personal existence view. This personal existence view is where your mind is confused. It has a misunderstanding. It thinks that this body is you or this mind is you. The mind clings to your self-image or your self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be comfortable if people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So for example, if you've ever went out to a social event and you spilt something on your clothing and you felt embarrassed in that situation, that is your personal existence view. The mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. It's clinging to this self-image, and you can only be happy if people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. But when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, the mind's going to be experiencing some discontent feeling, like the embarrassment or frustration or something like that. This is also the case like if you've ever maybe looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view. Or maybe you stood in front of the closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And you're like, let me put on some clothes. And you looked in the mirror and you're like, no. You put on another set and you're like, no. You put on a third set, you're like, all right, now I feel comfortable to go outside. Or maybe you were like me when I was a kid. I used to get gel and mousse and I would run it through my hair before I go to school. And I tried to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I couldn't go to school until I had every little hair in the right spot. And sometimes I would do this for so long that I would actually miss the school bus on the way to school. So this is personal existence view, where you're clinging to the body, only feeling comfortable if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. Then there's the self-identity. Inside your mind, you might have a certain identity, like I am Italian, or I am American, or I am Indian, or I am Brazilian, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or I am Chinese. Any of this I am, around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things your mind can cling to of who you think you are as a person. And now you can only be happy if people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So if you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, and your mind identifies with, I am American. Well, now you're going to be very happy and very excited when you're hearing that. But now it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, whatever nationality you have in your mind, somebody's going to be degrading and disparaging about that person, that type of person. And now you feel frustrated or angry. Or maybe you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a father, I am a mother. And now you have this identity that you're holding on to. And you can only be happy if that's intact. Because when you guys break up, you might feel uncomfortable. You might feel like you want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because your mind's identifying with I'm a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. And now when you're single, the mind doesn't identify that way as I am single. And the mind thinks the way to solve that is to hurry up and get back into another relationship. Or if you're away from your children and you think I am a father, I am a mother, now you feel like maybe you've abandoned that, right? And now you might feel like you want to hurry up and be right back close to them. And that's the way that your identity feels intact, right? So you need to be able to get to a point where you realize non-self. That's what the Buddha is teaching you as the universal truth of non-self, that there is no self, right? The mind's going to cling to all of this stuff as who you think you are as a person. But the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that this body is not you. This mind is not you. Any of that stuff that you're holding on to, it's not who you are as a person. There is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence. And we call that a person or a human being. But it's when you cling to any of this, craving for other people to perceive you in a certain way, that your mind can't be permanently happy. Because some people are going to look at you and they're going to think, wow, you're the nicest, kindest, most gentle person that I've ever met. And you'll be like, wow, I feel great. But then you're going to meet somebody that's going to think you're the most horrible person they've ever met in their entire life, right? And now you feel frustrated and angry. All that is impermanence. Some people are going to absolutely adore you and love you and think you're the best person on earth. Other people are going to despise you and hate you. You're never going to get to a point where everybody in the world loves you. But that's what the mind wants because of its personal existence view. It wants others to perceive you a certain way, and it's craving that permanence. So the Buddha is helping you to see that there is no self. So you can eliminate this clinging to all of this stuff that you're holding on to in your mind about who you think you are as a person. Okay, so this is a little bit of the intellectual learning on the universal truth of non-self. But remember, you're not interested in believing this. You would like to move it into reflection to be able to verify if what I'm sharing with you is true or if it's false. So here's the way you can independently verify there is no self, right? Is think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now. Think about how you viewed yourself, your personality, your character. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? You look at yourself differently during those 4 phases of your life. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated at the shoulder and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? She says no. You're less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? Diego says no. No, that's what most people say. They say, no, I'm not less of a person. This is where intellectually you understand this body is not you. Because otherwise you would answer that question differently. You would say there's less body, so there's less me. So yes, I am less of a person. But hardly anyone ever answers it that way, right? So this is where you can see that personal existence view is the mind's confusion. Because intellectually you understand this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, someone's going to say, wow, you're so beautiful. You're so handsome. That shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. And you're like, oh, they're talking about me because they're talking about this body, right? And now you're like so excited, right? But then it's only a matter of time before someone says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside looking like that? And now you're frustrated or angry. So intellectually, you can sit here and understand that this body is not you. But then in the heat of the moment, your mind's confusion kicks in. That's the personal existence view. And that's what you need to be able to eliminate. So there's certain training and teaching that the Buddha shares of how to proactively eliminate this out of the mind. That's not what I'm teaching you here today. I'm just introducing this to you. There's a retreat coming up in August where I'm going to spend about an hour to an hour and a half just talking about personal existence view and the universal truth of non-self and helping students to understand how to eliminate that. So here I'm just introducing it to you. And sometimes people understand it right away when I first start talking about it. Other times they don't. So if you don't understand fully what I'm explaining about this, it's okay. There's other opportunities for you to learn about it because we spend so much time accumulating this personal existence view in our life. It becomes very confusing to us of how this body is not me and how this mind is not me. Because ever since we were born, we were all given labels. I don't know all of your labels, but my label's David, right? And now we start having all this character and personality that we put behind it. Then we have countries that we live in, and we have flags, and national anthems and sports teams and all these other things. And we're like, yeah, that's my team. Yeah. And we cheer and cheer and cheer because we think I am American. So I'm supposed to cheer for the American team or whatever country you're from. Right. And now yeah. Right. So you've been accumulating this personal existence view for so long. It's challenging for the mind to think that none of this stuff is you. So I'm just going to pause here and see what questions you guys have about any of these three universal truths. So it looks like Diego, you have a question?
Okay. Yeah. I understand the three universal truths, but I feel like we have discontentedness because the mind likes permanence, like the first universal truth, and also the mind has this personal existence view. That's the third universal truth. So I feel like if that I could eliminate the discontentedness by accepting or reflecting and practicing the first universal truth of impermanence and practicing the non-self truth, but I could eliminate the second universal truth. So if it's a universal truth, I should not be eliminated. But the discontentment, the idea is to eliminate the discontentedness.
Yeah. The reason why this is a universal truth is that all unenlightened beings will experience this. And this is helping you to understand the problem in the mind, that this is the problem that you're working to eliminate. By the time you get to the Four Noble Truths, as you know, the Buddha explains that it's the craving for permanence that's causing all of this discontentedness. But you need to understand the problem in order to be able to implement the solution. Right? So this is the underlying lack of wisdom that the mind has about these three things. The mind in the unenlightened state doesn't even realize this is a problem. Oftentimes people think like, oh, I like the anger. I like the sadness. It makes me feel alive. And then that's what this universal truth is helping you to see is, no, this isn't helping you because your mind is all shaken up. Sometimes people think fear is actually helping them because it helps them to get to safety. This isn't true because when your mind's fearful, you're going to stumble over your feet. You're going to make all kinds of unwise decisions. So the Buddha is bringing to your attention like, hey, this is a problem. All unenlightened beings are experiencing this.
But then we could eliminate the discontentedness.
You can eliminate it from your mind, yes. But then there's going to be another person who still has discontentedness. That's why it's a universal truth that all unenlightened beings are going to experience discontentedness. Mm-hmm. You have something, Vibhav?
Yeah, I had a question on the first jhana. So in that it says that...
Oh, you're talking about jhanas?
No, just a question on...
Oh, okay.
Isn't in the jhana that in the first jhana, you will be filled with excitement and joy.
Yes.
So is that excitement, will it be followed by a painful feeling because it's still excitement?
Yes.
You get excited and they'll give you pleasant feelings. So it will be followed by painful feelings. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's why in the jhanas, you're still not enlightened yet. You're still experiencing conditional feelings. So you're still experiencing conditional pleasant feelings there, but you're also starting to experience some of the unconditioned joy is starting to shine through a little bit, whether it's a minute or an hour or 2 days, it's starting to shine through, but you're still experiencing conditional feelings in the jhanas. Even in the third stage of enlightenment, you're still experiencing conditional feelings.
In the third stage of enlightenment, you have gotten rid of your sensual desire. So the feelings are related to restlessness and conceit.
You can experience a little bit of ickiness in the mind. It's like residual clinging that the mind has. So while you've eliminated your sensual desire, there's still some residual clinging in the mind. So other people aren't going to know your discontent in the third stage of enlightenment. It's just going to be inward. It's just like a little bit of ickiness in the mind. You're still going to be experiencing that.
And in the fourth jhana, you basically you've already experienced equanimity, right?
That's where equanimity is coming into the mind, but it's not 100%. Your mind's not always equanimous by the time you get to the fourth jhana. But
Okay.
that's where it's fully developed and you have it fully available to you, but it's not in your mind from that point forward. You're still going to experience discontentedness.
But it will be mostly internal, right? Because you've developed equanimity and you're also able to you're basically, your mindfulness is fully developed at that point, and so you know that your bodily sensations are coming up, and they're able to then at least use it to eliminate the feelings from arising, the bodily sensations once they come up.
Yeah, you'll have the tools that you need by the time you get to the fourth jhana and you're moving into the first stage of enlightenment. You'll have all the tools you need to make your way to enlightenment. You still need guidance. You still need help. There's still more things to learn, but you'll have all the tools that you need, but they're not going to be permanent in your mind. The equanimity is not permanent by that point.
Okay, so in the first stage of enlightenment, you could still it's the bodily sensation, or it could end up your eliminate.
Yeah, you're still going to experience discontentedness all the way up to the third stage of enlightenment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask if get enlightenment, then you will get unconditional happiness. Is this happiness consist all the time, or is a state of feeling peaceful?
It's the same thing. So there's going to be peacefulness, there's going to be happiness, but it's not the happiness that you're used to now. Like now, when you get happy, you might be like, oh, I'm so happy. You know, you're kind of like bouncing off the walls over here, right? And if you're not doing that, then the mind's over here. It's like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm angry, right? So the happiness that you're experiencing in the enlightened mental state, it's unconditioned, meaning there doesn't need to be any condition met. What this is the mind is bright, it's cheerful, it's glad, it's uplifted at all times. There doesn't need to be any condition met. Even if your mom died when you were enlightened, your mind can still maintain its cheerfulness. You're not happy because mom died. You're happy despite the fact that mom died, because it's not love that causes the painful feelings when someone dies. It's actually the craving, desire, attachment. So by the time someone gets to enlightenment, they can maintain their happiness and their joy. The mind is bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted, but you're not just bouncing off the walls like is what you're used to with the conditional excitement and things like that.
So if you get enlightenment, it's permanent. The thing you feel, the joy you feel is permanent.
It is permanent, but I wouldn't describe it as a feeling. I would describe it as a mental state, because a feeling will arise, it will change, and then it will fade away. Where by the time you get to enlightenment, it is a permanent mental state where the mind is in that mental state. It's bright, it's cheerful, it's glad, it's uplifted at all times. And there's nothing that produces it. So there's nothing that can happen for it to stop experiencing that.
So there's no painful feeling anymore.
No mental painful feelings. You'll still have physical pain. So like if you stumped your toe as an enlightened being, you'll still feel the physical pain, but it won't be as heightened as it is in the unenlightened state. In the unenlightened state, when you stump your toe, you'll experience the physical pain, but you're going to experience mental anguish along with it, because the mind's going to be craving the permanent comfort of the body. And when it doesn't get that, the mind's going to be angry and frustrated, which actually heightens the physical pain. In the enlightened mental state, you'll experience the physical pain, but there's no mental anguish. In fact, you might even start laughing when you stump your toe. You're like, oh, that hurts. Oh my gosh, that hurts. So it's kind of like two darts. In the unenlightened state, you'll get hit with the first dart, which is the physical pain, but then you're going to get hit with the second dart, which is the mental pain. In the enlightened mental state, you only get hit with the first dart, the physical pain, and that's why it's very muted and very minimal. You never get the second dart. And you need that physical pain, because even as an enlightened being, if you were standing too close to a fire and you felt the fire on your body, if you didn't feel that, you wouldn't know, and the body would burn, right? But as an enlightened being, you're like, oh, that's hot. You move to the side, right? And you're probably cheerful and laughing like, whoa, that's hot. That's pretty toasty. But as an unenlightened being, you're like, oh man, that's so hot. Who turned that on? And you're complaining and upset, right? That's not what an enlightened being experiences, because they don't have that mental anguish. They'll actually probably start laughing in these kinds of things potentially. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So now there's one more building block to understand, and then we'll go into the Four Noble Truths. So you need to understand what is a craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is an aspect of the mind where it's longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind thinks something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. And it feels like if I can just get that thing, everything's going to be perfect in my life. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, I really want to get those. And you're so happy and so excited. That's your craving. It's not the shoes. It's not the object itself that is the craving. It's the way the mind longs and yearns for it. It pulls towards that thing. Or maybe it's a new phone or a new jewelry or some video game or something like this. Your mind's just longing, yearning, and thinking, if I can just get that thing. Oh my gosh, if I can just get a boyfriend or girlfriend, everything in my life will be perfect. If I can just get that new car, if I can just get more money, the mind is longing, yearning. Again, it's not the object itself, it's the way the mind longs and yearns for it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this? Yeah, your mind pulling towards things, thinking, if I can just get this thing. Okay, so that's what the craving, desire, attachment is, the mind pulling towards something. So now you have all the building blocks that you need in order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. And this is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing all of these feelings so that you can actually fix it. Because what people tend to think is that all of this is caused by other people. You might think it's your mom and dad that are causing you to be angry, or your brothers and sisters, or your life partner, or your children, or your boss. But you're going to see that it's actually your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is why you can actually fix it. So the first noble truth is explaining to you that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that the Buddha discovered, that your mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. You have periods of peace and joy here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you become annoyed or frustrated about something. It's only a matter of time, right? That's what the problem is. Because when your mind is shaken up with discontentedness, you can't access your wisdom to make wise decisions. And now you'll make unwise decisions when you're angry and you're frustrated, and now it'll produce unwholesome results for you. Okay? So that's the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to explain that. I'm going to give you some examples. I'll say it a few times. Discontentedness, the conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning, and wanting things to be a certain way. The mind craves permanence, but it lives in an impermanent world. So it's only a matter of time before the mind has discontentedness. So here's some examples. Think about a boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, you were probably so happy, so excited. Yay, there's a new person in my life. They're showing me affection. They're calling and checking in on me. They're inviting me to the movies, to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park and having nice walks together. Maybe you're having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact with each other. Wow, so much pleasure. But then over time, the relationship deteriorates, and now you guys break up. And when you break up, you might be angry or sad or frustrated, or maybe you're lonely or bored, or maybe you're missing this person. What this is the mind is holding on in craving permanence. It's not your love that's causing that. It's the mind craving permanence. That as long as the mind gets what it wants and what it expects, you'll experience pleasant feelings. But when you're not getting what you want, you'll experience painful feelings. This is what the mind does. The mind's holding on and craving permanence. Here's another example. Let's just say you had someone close to you that has died. Maybe mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, brothers or sisters. It's always unfortunate when someone dies, but it's not your love that's causing the grief or the sorrow or the sadness. You're not a bad person if you experience that during the time of death of somebody, but you need to be able to see what's causing it. What's causing it is the mind's holding on and craving permanence. You can only be happy if you get what you want. Grandma and grandpa are alive. Your mind's getting what you want. You're happy. You're excited about that. But now when you experience this impermanence, this death, now the mind doesn't like that. The mind's longing, yearning, and holding on to grandma and grandpa, wanting them to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. Because they were born, they had to die. You could see this if you've been to a wedding and you see people crying at a wedding. It's not love that's causing that, because this is wonderful. They're starting a new life. They're going out into the world with somebody else. This is outstanding. But no, mom and dad, brothers and sisters, other people might be crying at the wedding because their mind is holding on and craving permanence. They see this person going off into the world with someone else and their mind's holding on. It's like, hold on, that's my brother. That's my sister. How dare you take her away from me, right? This is what the mind's doing. It's holding on. It's not love that's causing that. You can see it if you've seen children get dropped off at school, or you can remember getting dropped off at school yourself. Like maybe you got dropped off at university, or if you got dropped off at school, your parents might have been crying. You might have been crying. Again, it's not love, because of course you would like your child to get education. Go to school, get an education. This is wonderful. But no, mom and dad might be crying because the mind's holding on, craving permanence. And here goes their kid out into the world all by themselves, right? So this is the mind craving permanence. Here's an example that doesn't involve relationships. Oftentimes people can see it more clearly with this. Think about if you bought a brand new car, that maybe you've been saving money for this car for a really long time. You've been shoving money under your mattress in your bed. For 10 years, you've been saving this money, and you finally got enough money to go buy this car. You're so happy and excited. You go down to the car dealership, you give them your money, they give you your keys, you drive off the parking lot. Everybody's looking at you. Wow, look at him. He's so successful. Wow, look at her. And you're so proud driving your car, and you park it at a store, and you go inside, and you come out, and there's a big scratch right across your car. You might be crushed. You might be so angry and frustrated. You've been saving for 10 years for this car. Well, if you're angry and frustrated, it's not the scratch that's causing this. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence, that the mind's craving for this car to look permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to get scratched. It's only a matter of time. The car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's only a matter of time. Whereas if you crave for this car to look permanently beautiful, when it starts changing, your mind's not going to like that. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. The mind doesn't like change. Look at your life. Look at all the times when things were changing in your life. Those were the times that you struggled the most. When you were changing living locations, when you were changing jobs or occupations, when your relationships were changing, those were the times that you were struggling the most in your life, because the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't like change. It doesn't like impermanence. So when you're experiencing impermanence, the mind doesn't like it. And the thing is that the world's full of impermanence, because the whole world around you is impermanent. So as long as the mind's craving permanence, you're going to experience struggles and difficulties in your life. So this is the second noble truth, helping you to understand that craving, desire, attachment, that craving for permanence is what's causing your discontent feelings. But remember, don't believe me. You need to be able to independently verify it for yourself. So take a recent situation right now. Take a recent situation where you've been angry, you've been frustrated, you've been irritated or annoyed. Maybe it was this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because your mind didn't get what it wanted, it got angry or sad or frustrated. If you can look at this and see it for yourself, you can have a real breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. Because what the mind will tend to do when you're experiencing anger and sadness and these other feelings is it'll blame it on other people. It'll think that it's other people that are causing these feelings. And what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to be unskillful. You'll tend to push people away. This is called aversion, where you push away a situation or you push away a person, thinking that that's going to solve your problem. You might have pushed away friends or family out of your life, right? This is normal. This is what people do when they don't understand the wisdom of what's truly causing these painful feelings. Or the second thing you'll do is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like trying to fear somebody else into doing things your way. It's like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. Do things my way. That's what the mind's doing. Or the third thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, is you'll tend to put expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. And people are probably doing this to you too, that they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting expectations on you. So as long as your mind's doing this, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you, right? There's only one person in the world that actually does things your way 100% of the time. Do you know who this person is? This mysterious person? Yeah. It's only you. You're the only one who does things your way 100% of the time. So it is only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you. But the unenlightened mind is craving permanence, wanting everybody to do it your way. It's almost like you're trying to create this little bubble for yourself, and you want everybody to do it your way. And if they don't do it your way, you'll push them out of your bubble. Or you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to them, trying to fear them to do it your way. Or you'll put expectations on them and try to pressure them to do it your way. But the thing is that there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't convince 8 billion people to do things your way, right? So you don't need to go out into the world and train 8 billion people. That would be very exhausting. You'd have to have training centers all over the world. You'd have to have massive training materials. You'd have to convince everybody that your way is the right way. Right? And there's new people being born all the time that you're going to need to be training. So that's a lot of work, right? Or you could just train one mind, and then you can actually get to peace and joy. You know who that one mind is that you need to train? Yourself. That's it. Your own mind. That's the only one you need to train. I just lessens your work from 8 billion people down to 1. Right? That's all you need to do is just train one mind. Okay? So this mind is craving permanence. So what it needs to do is it needs to let go. It needs to be able to be trained to let go. So that's what the third noble truth is helping you to be able to see, that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's not chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that some external thing is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So you're going to need to train your mind to let go. But sometimes when I teach this, people think, hold on a second, if I'm not chasing after the objects of my affection, won't I swing all the way to the other side where I'm dull and lethargic and lazy? Well, the answer is yes, you might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue your goals and objectives and interests with enthusiasm and ambition, but without forming your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. So the third noble truth is helping you to be able to see that when your mind lets go, that's where your peace and your joy is. So think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you broke up with. When you first broke up with them, you were angry and frustrated. But at some point, your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and joy came back. Or you're like, you know what? If she wants to live in a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But as long as you were holding on, you couldn't be peaceful. You were longing, yearning for them to be in your life, and you were missing them, and you were lonely and bored and angry and frustrated. But at some point, your mind let go. So what the Buddha is teaching you how to do is train your mind to let go. But the mind doesn't know how to let go. That's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The fourth noble truth is the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to teach you how to let go. So the Buddha gives you these 8 individual factors that's going to train you on how to let go. And it starts with right view. What right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's your cravings, desires, attachments. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for the feelings that you're having, you'll never fix this because you'll just keep pushing people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you'll put expectations on them and try to pressure them to do things your way. You'll never solve it. So that's why the Buddha starts with right view. So you need to be able to have right view. The way you practice right view is you start looking inward. Whenever you have anger and frustration, what the unenlightened mind will do is it'll look externally to look for someone to blame. Because it can't be you, right? It's everybody else that's a problem. That's what the ego tells you, that everybody else is causing these problems in my life. If they would just do things my way, the world would be perfect, right? So the mind's always looking for someone else to blame. So that's wrong view. Instead, what you would like to do is start looking inward and start being reflective. So let's just say you're checking in at an airport and you think your flight's leaving in an hour and you're checking your bags in and the person behind the ticket counter says, sorry, sir, sorry, ma'am, you can't check in right now. Your flight's actually delayed. You can't check in for another 3 hours. And you start noticing the anger coming up. Well, rather than sitting in the waiting area and blaming the airline company, start looking inward. Start trying to be reflective and introspective. What is the mind craving? What am I longing, yearning for? I'm on my way to Thailand and I want that mango and sticky rice. Boy, I can't wait to get to that mango and sticky rice. Or the elephants or the massages or something else, right? The mind's longing, yearning for something, right? It's not the airline company that's causing your anger. It's the mind craving permanence. I want every airplane to take off on time. We don't live in that world. We live in an impermanent world. There's going to be weather issues, crew issues, maintenance issues. If you travel enough, you're going to meet with a delay with your airplane. It's only a matter of time, right? So you need to be able to understand that when you walk in, that this plane may or may not even take off on time. It may even be canceled altogether and you're not even going to go where you need to go. You might need to go get a hotel and come back tomorrow and fly the next day, right? These kinds of things happen because we live in an impermanent world. Okay, so let me stop here. I've got some more to teach you, but I'm going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths, because this is so important that you understand this. Do you guys have any questions here? No questions? Okay, I don't see any online either. So I'm going to move to the next factor, which is right intention, because we just covered right view. Now we'll talk about right intention. Each one of these don't take the same amount of time to learn. It's just the first one takes a lot of time to be able to teach it to you. Okay. So this one is really straightforward. It's called right intention. Here's the words of the Buddha. Remember, you're always interested in studying with the words of the Buddha whenever you're looking to get to enlightenment through his teachings. And what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So some people call this right intention. Some people call it right thinking or right thought. What this is 3 things: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. This is where you need to cultivate the intention or the thinking or the thought of these 3 things. The intention of renunciation is to have the willingness to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness. Because in the unenlightened state, you have some amount of unwholesomeness in terms of your moral conduct and the way that you conduct yourself in your day-to-day life. If you're unwilling to let that go and you just hold on to the way you currently do things, you'll never get to enlightenment. So you need to be willing to let go. If you experience anger, sadness, frustration, and any of these other discontent feelings, there's a certain amount of false beliefs, false opinions, false views that are in your mind. So what you need to be able to do is be willing to renunciate those, let those go. But you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to replace your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing on the path to enlightenment. When you're bringing in information, you're bringing in wisdom where you can independently verify that something is true. And when you bring in this new wisdom and you see that it conflicts with something you believed your entire life, you've got to be willing to renunciate that, let that go. One of the first false beliefs that you need to be willing to let go of is that other people are causing you to be angry, that other people are causing you to be frustrated or irritated or annoyed. We believe that our whole life until we learn the Four Noble Truths and we penetrate into it. Belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it or you convinced yourself to believe it. But you need to get to wisdom. That's what's going to lead to your enlightenment. So when you bring in this new wisdom and you can see, oh my gosh, I've been causing this anger my entire life. I had no idea, right? And now you need to be able to renunciate that, right? Because I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out arguments with people where you've been adamantly trying to convince them that they need to stop doing what they're doing or else you're going to continue to get angry. That was your mind that was causing the anger. That doesn't mean they weren't doing something unwise. They could have surely been doing something unwise, but your mind was craving permanence. You wanted everybody to do it this way. And that's just not the world you live in. So you're going to need to be able to renunciate your false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness that you're willing to let go. Essentially, you're keeping an open mind, realizing that you don't know everything there is to know about this world yet, that there's still wisdom for you to be able to cultivate. And when you bring in that wisdom and you see it conflicts with things that you've thought your whole life, you need to be willing to let that go. So that's the first part. The second one here is non-ill will. What ill will is the animosity, the bitterness, the anger, the hatred, and all the lesser versions like frustration or agitation or annoyance. So if you have non-ill will, that's a double negative. So non-ill will is goodwill. So you're going to need the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Then the third part is the intention of harmlessness, where you get to the point to be disinterested in causing harm to others, where you're incapable of causing harm. Now, you just heard me taught that you cause your own discontentedness. The same thing is true about other people too. If your mom or dad or brothers or sisters or other people are angry or frustrated, they are causing their own anger and frustration. You can't cause someone to be angry and frustrated. It's physically impossible for you to cause someone to be angry or frustrated, but you can cause them harm. If you cause someone harm, it means that you're causing harm to their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, that harm is going to come back to you. So you need to cultivate the thinking or the thought or the intention that you're disinterested in causing harm to others, where you can't imagine causing harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, that you're disinterested in doing that. That would be right intention for the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. And what this does is this forms the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path, that you first have right view, where you understand the Four Noble Truths, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, taking responsibility and accountability for your own feelings, understanding it's not the outside world that's causing you to be angry and frustrated. It's your own mind that's causing that it's your own feelings, intentions, speech, and actions. Other people aren't causing you to do those things. Those are things that your mind is choosing to do. Then right intention is the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness. Then you have the intention of non-ill will, which is goodwill, which is having a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings. Then you'd like to have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Causing harm would be to cause harm to their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. And you'd like to be disinterested in doing that, that your mind is not capable of doing that, that you don't have that intention of causing harm to others. So any questions on right view or right intention? Okay. You have a question? Yeah.
So, in the intention of harmlessness, of not causing harm to anybody else's body, material possessions, or reputation, is is through practicing the right intention, speech, and action, right?
Say that again.
So
Oh, yes. Yes.
yes, it's a kind of recursive
Yes.
idea here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, so okay, that was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I don't see any questions online. So what I'm going to do here is take a little break for you guys. And when we come back, now that we've explored the wisdom section, I'm going to move into the moral conduct section and the mental discipline section, helping you guys to understand how all of this fits together and works to be able to help you get to harmonious relationships in the enlightened mental state. So right now it's basically, let's just call it 10 minutes to 11. So let's take a 20-minute break where we'll come back at 11:10. That's where we'll start again. Okay, so enjoy your break and I'll see you guys afterwards. Okay. So welcome back to all of you guys. Welcome back. Back to everyone online as well. I'm going to move further into the Eightfold Path here, helping you guys to understand moral conduct and mental discipline. But it's all built on this wisdom to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because if you didn't understand it was your own mind causing these feelings with right view, why would you do anything to fix any of it? It's like everybody else is the problem. Why aren't they here? They should fix what they're doing. But what you start out with is the wisdom section to understand that you're going to need to create change in order to improve here. So now we're going to move into the moral conduct and mental discipline section. Whenever you're learning moral conduct from the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to understand what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Sometimes when people are learning moral conduct, they think it's rules or commandments, or they think that somebody's trying to force you to function in a certain way. That's not the case here. Remember that the Buddha was already peaceful. He was already joyful. He figured out how to get to that enlightened mental state. And basically, he spent the rest of his life saying, hey, if you would like to experience this enlightened mental state, here's how to do it, right? So he's helping you to cultivate wisdom about wise decision making, about your moral conduct, that when you make these wise decisions, you're going to experience wholesome results. He's teaching you what's called the natural law of karma. Some people call it karma. But in the Pali language, which the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, the word karma is being used. What this means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. Whenever you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you're going to experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So there's certain moral conduct in the unenlightened state that you have that is producing unwholesome results for you. But the mind doesn't understand that. It doesn't have that wisdom. So what the Buddha is going to help you to see is what is wise speech, wise action, and wise livelihood. Even though we call it right speech, right action, and right livelihood, the way you might think about it is wise speech, wise action, and wise livelihood. Because the Buddha is helping you to see this natural law of cause and effect. That whenever you make decisions wisely, you'll experience these wholesome results. But if you keep putting out harmful moral conduct, then harm is just going to keep coming back to you. So the Buddha, remember, with the Eightfold Path, is teaching you how to eliminate craving, anger. He's helping you to eliminate these desires, the longing, the yearning, the attachment. And there's certain moral conduct that you have that's based in your cravings, your longing, yearning. So it's your life, your decisions, and your results. It's the results of your decisions. That's what the natural law of karma is. And the Buddha is going to show you the moral conduct that's going to produce wholesome karma, or wholesome results for you. So here's the one on right speech. He says, and what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So these are 4 types of speech that are all based in craving, desire, attachment. And whenever you're making decisions through craving, desire, attachment, it's going to produce harmful results for you. It's going to produce unwholesome karma. You need to be able to eliminate that craving and desire, the longing, yearning, because all of these things are going to produce unwholesome results. For example, think back to times when you've been lying. It produced unwholesome results for you. That there was some craving that you had. There was longing, yearning, wanting something. And the mind felt like, if I tell the truth, I'm not going to get what I want. So the mind lied in order to be able to get what it wanted. But then eventually people discovered those lies. And when they figured out those lies, they considered you to be untrustworthy. And they weren't pleased to be able to continue to interact with you, perhaps. And you might have lost a job, or you might have lost a contract, or something like this. So eliminating your lying, you'll be able to just speak the truth, where you're just always speaking the truth. Whereas if you did a lot of lying, maybe as a child, you remember when you had to keep your lies straight, you had to figure out what you told mom, what you told dad, what you told grandma, what you told grandpa. You had to keep all these lies straight. It was really difficult in the mind to be able to do that. You're burdening your mind with all of that. But if you just speak the truth, it's so easy. You just speak the truth. And now you can easily interact with all the people around you. Refraining from slander is to eliminate the speech that is involved in degrading and diminishing other people. If you're degrading and diminishing other people through your speech, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. At the height of this, you can actually be murdered. This is why people go on the news, they're investigative reporters, they end up slandering somebody. Next thing you know, they end up dead. I'm not explaining to you the way the world should be. I'm helping you to see the way the world is. And the way the world is that if you go out and slander and gossip people, you're going to experience unwholesome results. At the very least, if you gossip and slander people, well, when you're gossiping and slandering with this group of people over here, and you leave and you go do something else and your back is turned, what do you think those people are going to be doing? They're going to be gossiping and slandering about you, right? So if you aren't interested in people gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to stop gossiping and slandering about others. What the mind has here is a craving. It wants to look good in front of other people. And it thinks the way to do that is diminish and degrade other people. And somehow you're going to look better. But actually, you don't look better. It actually looks bad for you. It's kind of like going into a dark room and everybody has a candle. And the mind thinks, if I put out everybody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. Yay, let me put out everybody else's candle. But now we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright. We don't need to put out everybody's candle. So you would like to get to a point where you're not gossiping and slandering people. That's going to produce wholesome results for you because you're not damaging their reputation. Then you would like to eliminate harsh speech. Harsh speech is where you need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, where you can speak gentle in all situations. You're not interested in speaking bitter and harsh and hostile because it just produces unwholesome results for you. Because the mind, with its craving, desire, attachment, you'll start speaking bitter and harsh and hostile. This is why when you speak to maybe your parents, your brothers and your sisters, your life partner, your children, you have certain cravings in there. You want them to do things a certain way. Where maybe your friends or your associates or your coworkers, you can speak gentle to them all day long because you don't have those same cravings. But with your craving, desire, attachment, you'll find it difficult to speak gentle in all situations. But you're going to need to train your mind to do that, where you can be gentle with the people around you. Because as long as you speak harsh and hostile and bitter, it's all coming back to you. You can see in the relationships where you're being harsh and hostile and bitter, that all comes back to you. And it's just damaging your relationships. So you need to improve that. Then there's refraining from frivolous speech. Frivolous speech is like unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech where someone's just rambling. I don't know if you've ever been that kind of person or if you know someone who has been. It's just kind of like yada, 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 yada. Yada, 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 yada. It's not really like a conversation. They're like broadcasting to you. That's what it is, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to be quiet? Like this isn't even a conversation, right? So if you went around doing that, what you'll find is you'll be less and less influential, that people will just tune you out. They won't be interested in talking with you. So if you're talking, you would like to create space so that you can have a conversation with people. What's going on here is the mind has craving to speak. It just wants to talk. It has this longing, yearning to talk. That's why the mind's doing that. And it's going to produce unwholesome results. So this is the first level of what you're working on with right speech, eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. But the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else the Buddha taught plugs into it in one way or the other. So there's this other teaching that plugs into the Eightfold Path called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This gives you a deeper level of detail about how to speak in ways that is wise so that it'll produce wholesome results for you. So here he teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time is making sure you're not interrupting people. If you're interrupting people, it's going to produce harmful results for you. You don't like being interrupted. So when people interrupt you, then you can see that you don't like it, right? So if you go around interrupting a lot of people, then they're going to experience certain feelings. You're not causing those feelings, but they're going to experience that. They're going to attribute it to you, and now they're going to get angry and frustrated and bitter with you. So you would like to wait your turn to speak. Because when you're interrupting people, there's a craving. The mind's longing, yearning. It's trying to jump in there and talk, and it can't wait its turn. Then the second part of speaking at the proper time is making sure that your mind's prepared to talk. If you're angry and frustrated or agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk. Only thing that's going to come out is bitterness and hostility, and you're going to damage your relationships. And the third part is making sure it's the proper time for the other person to talk. If their mind is frustrated or agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk, and you're going to see that the conversation is not going to go very well for you. So you would like to be sure you're speaking at the proper time, that you're not interrupting, that your mind's prepared to talk, and the other person's mind is prepared to talk. Then it will produce wholesome results for you. Then you would like to speak the truth. We talked about that up here. You'd like to be a truth speaker, reliable and dependable. Then you'd like to speak gently. We talked about that up here. You're going to need to pay attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice. And some of you guys speak more than one language, so you're going to need to look at those languages that you speak and figure out what's the proper way to speak here that people can understand. I'm being polite, kind, friendly, respectful. You might need to use words like sir and ma'am, or thank you, or please, or other things like this, right? So you like to pay attention to your tone, tempo, in your word choice. That's what's going to help you to be able to speak gentle. Then you'd like to speak beneficially. Speaking beneficially is the method and the mode of how you're communicating, that you're clear, concise, and precise in the way that you're speaking. It's not necessarily about the topic, it's about the method of communication, that you like to be clear, concise, and precise. If you're just rambling chit-chat, unpurposeful, and beneficial speech, people aren't going to be interested in talking with you, and you're not going to be very influential in your community. Then you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You would like to wrap this in all of that, where you can be loving and kind and warm and gentle with people rather than bitter and harsh and hostile, because that's not going to produce the wholesome results for you. So this is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. But here you're not interested in believing any of this stuff, right? Don't believe any of this stuff. You need to be able to independently verify it. Think back to a time where a conversation didn't go well for you. Maybe it ended in a way that you would rather that conversation have not ended. You can look at these 5 factors of well-spoken speech and see that you weren't speaking at the proper time, or you weren't speaking the truth, or you weren't speaking gently, or beneficially, or with a mind of loving kindness. Remember, these are natural laws. They're affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. So that means when you were not using these 5 factors, it has a likelihood that you're not going to experience wholesome results. But then look at the other side of this, because you've had conversations that have gone well. Maybe at the break, you had some conversations with each other. You can look at wholesome conversations that it went well. You can see that you and the other person were using these 5 factors. This is how you independently verify that these are indeed the natural laws, because you've been practicing them before, but you weren't consciously practicing them because you might not have known what these 5 factors are. So now you'd like to bring these to the forefront of your mind and start practicing these closely. You'd like to maybe review them in the morning and maybe go out in your day, in your business meetings, and have your business meetings, have them fresh in your mind. And now maybe at lunchtime or in the evening, you review them again and see, I was kept interrupting that guy. That was unwise of me. Or, I did really well with that gentle speech. I felt like I wanted to speak harsh there, but I didn't. I'm going to keep doing that, right? So you'd like to really bring this up into your mind more and more and practice it in all situations. So we call this right speech. This is how the Buddha referred to it. But the way that we might think about this is right communication. Because during the lifetime of the Buddha, all there was speech. That's all there was. But nowadays, we have many more things than just speech. We have social media posts, emails, text messages, voicemails. We have many ways that we communicate. So we would like to apply all of this to each one of those methods of communication. So for example, if you're angry and you're frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you're pounding on your keyboard to send out an email, it's not the proper time to be communicating. Maybe hit save on that email instead of send, because when you hit send, it's going to go out into the world and it's producing harm, and now harm's going to come back to you. But if you hit save, you can come back in a few hours or a few days and you can look at that email and be like, yeah, probably not a good idea for me to send that email, right? And maybe you modify it, or maybe you just delete it altogether, right? Or let's just say you went to a business interview where you were looking to get a job. let's say they interviewed you and you knocked it out of the park. In terms of right speech, you were speaking verbally very, very well. And these people are interested in hiring you. But now they go look at your social media and they see that you're bitter and harsh and hostile through your social media. You're probably not going to get the job. So you would like to make sure you're speaking wisely in all situations, whether it's verbal, whether it's text, chat, social media, any of these places. You would like to make sure you're always speaking wisely using this. And it's going to take you time to dial this in. And the people that you're closest with, that's going to be the most challenging. Your parents, your sibling, your life partner, your children. That'll be the most challenging for you. That's why I'm going to be teaching you as part of this course how to eliminate your attachment to these people, where you can still have a relationship, but you're not attached to them. Okay? So this is right speech. Now, as you're learning right speech, there's some things that you're going to need. Like this book, it has all the details of right speech in here. And remember, you can get this for free. So you can go through and you can actually see exactly how to practice each one of these factors. But between now and the time that you're actually knowing these factors really closely, one of the things you might keep in mind is that you would like to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. You're going to need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, but you're going to maybe be in certain situations where you can't quite remember them in the next 3 months or 6 months or something, right? And you're not going to be able to say, hey, Mom, I'm really angry here. I'm so frustrated. I need to look at these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I don't want to talk to you until I look at these 5 factors, right? You're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to be in the heat of the moment, like in a business meeting or something like that. So if you can just keep in mind to speak polite, kind, friendly, respectful, this will help you. But ultimately, you need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's what's going to ultimately get you to the point where you're practicing in a wise way that leads to enlightenment. Then there's right action. Here's what the Buddha says. He says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's giving you 3 actions that are very impactful and helping you to understand that it's unwise to do these things. Because if you cause harm, harm is going to come back to you. But he's not going to give you an exhaustive list because that's impossible. He wouldn't be able to tell you every single little thing that you could cause harm with your body. That's why you've got to figure this out. You've got to move to this higher consciousness, and you need to be able to think through the wise decisions. So notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? But if you understand this step, you understand that would be unwise, because the natural law of karma, cause and effect, is that if you choose to punch someone in the face, they're probably going to punch you back. Or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or family are going to attack you, right? It's only a matter of time before you experience some harm from this situation. So the Buddha is giving you 3 impactful ones here, but you're going to need to understand some others, and you're going to need to figure that out as you go. Like if you're walking through an airplane and you're dragging your suitcase and you're running over people's feet and bumping them in their knees, you're going to experience some unwholesome karma there because you're causing harm with your bodily actions. And the Buddha couldn't have put that into the Eightfold Path because airplanes didn't even exist 2,500 years ago. So he's not giving you an exhaustive list. He's just giving you 3 impactful ones, and then you're going to need to understand the others and figure those out. It's important to understand that this sexual misconduct and all of these others are expanded in the 5 precepts. If you look at his 5 precepts, which is in Volume 1, Chapter 7, I have all the original words of the Buddha here, where these are just very general and very broad, but in the 5 precepts, he expands this. He talks about what is sexual misconduct. He talks about sex with minors. He talks about having sex against someone's consent. He talks about going outside of your relationships. He's helping you to be able to see if you're going to have sex, do it in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. So you would like to explore the 5 precepts. I teach that in the Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, but in this course, I don't teach it. So you're going to need to go into the book and you're going to need to learn the 5 precepts in order to really be able to practice this moral conduct section very closely. Then there's something called right livelihood. A livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. How do you acquire the resources that you need in order to be able to sustain your life? So here's what the Buddha teaches in the Eightfold Path. In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, The noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So he just says something very general and very broad here. But in other parts of his teachings, he explains what is right livelihood. Because remember, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into. So I'm going to teach you what's called the first fold of purification, the first level of purification of your livelihood. Because if you cause harm through your livelihood, harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha gives you this guidance that it would be unwise to have business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because each one of these livelihoods is causing harm. If you cause harm as any part of your life, that harm is going to come back to you. So if you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, this harm will come back to you. So let me show you how this works, because of course you're not interested in believing this, right? This is just the Buddha explaining to you the natural law. And that's the intellectual learning part of it. But now you need to move into reflection to be able to independently verify if it's true or if it's false. So think about if I was standing on the street corner selling substances that cause heedlessness. I was putting heroin and crystal methamphetamine into the community. I'm causing harm here because these people are getting addicted to the substance. They're going out and robbing and stealing and selling their bodies in order to bring me money. And now I'm sustaining my life off of this. Well, harm is going to come to me as a result of this. If I'm standing on the street corner selling this crystal methamphetamine, this heroin, this cocaine, now as people come by, I can get murdered very easily, get murdered. I can get beat up. I can get robbed. I can get addicted to these substances myself. Or perhaps I get arrested. This is the unwholesome karma that's coming to me as a result of causing harm in the community. So this is the natural law of karma that I'm explaining to you. Now, there's some places in the world where it's not illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine and heroin. There's some places like that in the world. But you're still going to experience these results. It's not that you're going to get arrested by the government, but you still can potentially get beat up or murdered or any of these other kinds of things. So, for example, the country that I grew up in, I can go work at a liquor store. The government's not going to arrest me for that. I can go be a cashier at a liquor store. But if I understand the natural law of karma, I might realize that this isn't really wise, because standing there at the liquor store, that's where people come in with guns and knives and they get robbed, they get beat up, they get murdered. And even I can experience the customers coming in and out that are intoxicated. And now how can I get to a peaceful and joyful life when I'm having to deal with intoxicated people on a daily basis, right? So this is a law that's functioning at a much higher level than human laws. Human laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. What we're talking about is a law that's functioning at a much higher level. So if you just follow your government's laws, you won't actually get to enlightenment. But if you're practicing the natural law of karma, you'll never have problem with your government because you're actually functioning at a much higher level than the human laws. So you can go through each one of these and you can see that what the Buddha is teaching you is the truth. It's based in the natural law of karma. Then there's another part to your livelihood, because what the Buddha is helping you to do is get to a point where you thoroughly enjoy your livelihood to the point where it doesn't even feel like work anymore, that you're performing well and you're doing extremely good job at what you're doing, that it doesn't even feel like work. That sure, you're making money from this thing and you're sustaining your life, but you're thoroughly enjoying what you do. If you're dragging yourself to work each day, this isn't going to produce peacefulness and joy. So the Buddha is giving you ways to actually perform your livelihood that's going to produce wholesome results for you. So for example, if I chose to be a politician and I was elected to my office, the Buddha teaches you to eliminate these things like scheming. If I was a politician, I'm not causing any harm. I'm the mayor of a town, right? I'm not causing any harm here. But if I was scheming, or maybe I was doing backhanded deals in order to enrich myself, people are actually going to discover what I've done maybe 10, 15 years into my career. Now they won't reelect me because they found out what I was doing, and I was doing these backhanded deals, right? So you'd like to eliminate any kind of scheming or corruption as part of your livelihood. Then there's flattery. What flattery is like giving insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you, where you don't really have any particular comment to say other than something insincere in order to be able to get them to buy something from you. So if you're trying to flatter people, they're going to see through that and they're not going to be interested in doing business with you. So for example, maybe you go into a store, you might have gone into a place, and now when you walk in, they say, "Oh my gosh, that shirt brings out the colors of your eyes. You're so handsome. You're so beautiful. You know, I have these really nice earrings that go nice with that shirt. Would you like to come over here and see these earrings?" Right? They're trying to flatter you, get you all puffed up so that now you'll come over here and buy these things, right? And people can see through that. And if you've ever been in those situations, you are probably like, "Ugh, I don't even want to go in this store. It's like, just doesn't feel right," right? So you're not interested in that. Because when people do business, they do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. And if you're doing things where you're just giving insincere comments and flattery, they're not going to be interested in doing business with you. So you would like to create your karma where people are very pleased to be able to do business with you because they would like to purchase things from you. But if you're just flattering them, they're not going to be interested in doing that. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise and precise in the way that you're actually delivering communication as part of your work. So let's just say all of us were on a project team and we needed to go brief the boss about what it is that we're doing. We would like to be clear, concise, and precise in the way that we're communicating, because that's going to produce the best results for us in our livelihood. Then there's belittling. You'd like to eliminate any kind of belittling. This is where you're degrading and diminishing your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. You would like to eliminate all of this. Whereas if you're degrading and diminishing people, it's not going to produce wholesome results for you. Oftentimes people think it makes them look better if they degrade and diminish others, but it's really not. So if somebody asks you about your competition, instead of degrading and diminishing them, a really easy thing to say is, "I'm not sure what they do 100%, but this is what I can do for you. I can help you with this right here." Right? So now you're selling what it is that you can do. You don't have to talk about your competition because you don't really know what they do 100% anyway. You don't work for them, right? You're doing this work for yourself or in a different company. So no need to belittle anybody as part of your livelihood or any other aspect of your life. Then there's pursuing gain with gain. What pursuing gain with gain is that you're just going to this particular job for the money. That's all you care about. You don't really care about the product or the service. You're just there for the paycheck. If you've ever had that kind of job, you probably dragged yourself to work. And you probably felt great at first. The first couple of months, you got this big fat paycheck and you felt really great. But then afterwards, it kind of wore off and you just kind of dragged yourself to work each day. You don't really care about the work. You don't really care about the service or the product. You're just there to collect the paycheck. And you can't get to peace and joy that way. So you're going to need to find something that you have enthusiasm and ambition in order to be able to perform this livelihood and feel really great about the work that you do each day, to the point where it doesn't even feel like work anymore. There's people like that here in Thailand, that you might go to a place and see someone selling mango and sticky rice. And they're so pleased to just sell you that mango and sticky rice. And they can't imagine doing anything else other than selling you that mango and sticky rice. They probably woke up this morning, went out into their mango grove, picked their mangoes out of the trees, put them into the basket. They brushed them off, got the dust off of them. They brought them to the market. Now they're standing there with a big smile on their face, slicing their mangoes, putting it over top of that warm, sticky rice and pouring the coconut milk on it and handing it to you with a big smile on their face, right? And they're collecting their little 40 baht, right? That's what they're doing. But the 40 baht is just kind of like immaterial to them. They just can't imagine doing anything else than serving you that mango and sticky rice, right? So what you need to do is you need to find your mango and sticky rice. What is it that you're going to thoroughly enjoy doing in this world that it doesn't even feel like work anymore? So if you're in between jobs, you're unemployed now, or maybe you're in a job that you don't particularly care for, you're going to need to practice these teachings in order to be able to get to a point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. This is what's called the first fold of purification, the first level of purification. There's a second level. In volume 12, chapter 14 of our book series, you'll find the second level of purification there. So you're welcome to read that, and you'll be able to see the words of the Buddha, and you'll see words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how to get to that second level of purification. Because you'd like to have a livelihood that you thoroughly enjoy, and you can't imagine doing anything else other than that. Okay, so just to summarize our moral conduct section, and then I'll open up to questions, is there's right speech, where you're disinterested in causing harm through any of your verbal conduct, but not just your verbal conduct, but your texts, your chats, your posts, your emails. All of this should be harmless. That you're eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then you practice speaking at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. That's what's going to produce the wholesome results for you. Understanding it's going to take you time to dial that in closer and closer. And in the relationships that you're maybe the closest with, like your parents and other people, it's going to be the most challenging for you. So you're going to need to really work at that. Then you would like to practice right action, where you're not causing any harm through your bodily conduct, that all your bodily actions should be harmless, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm, and you're actually not causing harm through your bodily actions. Then you would like to eliminate any harm through your livelihood and the way you sustain your life, that you eliminate weapons, business and living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, that you don't have work in those areas. And then you also eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. This is what's going to produce the best results for you in your livelihood. So any questions here with the moral conduct? No questions? Oh, you have a question? Yeah. Yeah.
The example you gave about investigative reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way a journalist can be an investigative reporter and still pursue right speech? Because in the end, they're investigating something and they will be, I guess, end up slandering somebody or harming their reputation because they're saying something about them that will cause other people to look at them differently.
Yeah, if you're damaging someone's reputation, it's going to produce harm for you.
Okay, so
here in Thailand, the way that they do this, and it's still not a right livelihood, but it's less likely that you're going to experience harm, is they don't put their name on the work. So they will write up an article and they will explain some corruption of some top official, but there's no journalist name on it. It'll just say staff writer, and people don't know who actually wrote it. Still, you're practicing wrong speech because you're the one who wrote that, and through back channels, somebody could find out who did it, and now you'll end up experiencing unwholesome results. But it's a bit better than the way that some people do it today, that they'll actually assign their name to it, and now you're going to experience direct unwholesome results more quickly. Whereas if you don't put your name, you'll still experience unwholesome karma, but it'll be delayed quite a bit because of people having to figure out who actually wrote it.
So I guess on investigative reporting, the idea is, the idea is not, in the end of slandering the person they're writing about,
Mm-hmm.
but the intention behind is to basically tell the truth about something that the other person did, right? It's not, especially in like think of like Watergate and stuff like that. As like a big examples of investigative journalism that was done by the reporters there. They're trying to, at least from their point of view, they're trying to show the truth behind somebody else's, say, corruption or their unwholesome karma, unwholesome actions.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention is to basically get the truth out and in the process that they end up damaging the reputation.
Mhm.
But the intention is to basically get the truth out. So how does one think about the intention of exposing the truth about somebody, but also that it is going to cause
Yeah.
the reputation.
I can help you here. So there's only one type of individual who's doing everything in the world perfectly, and that is an enlightened being. Every other person is doing things that are unwise and unwholesome to a certain degree. So if we make a habit of going around and talking bad about every single thing that every single person is doing, the airwaves are full of nothing but people complaining about how bad other people are, right? And now we're just having this discussion about how bad everybody else is, and everybody's pointing the finger about this person's bad, that person's bad, this person's bad, this person's bad, this person did that, and this person did that. Well, if you understand the natural law of karma and you have confidence and you've independently verified it, you know that that person who's doing something unwise, they're going to experience the results of their decisions. As an investigative reporter, if someone chooses to do that, that's their choice. And I'm not here to tell people what they should or shouldn't do, but they're going to experience unwholesome results because they're exposing this over here, where instead, if you understand the natural law of karma, that person's going to experience the results of their decisions. I don't need to be the person that goes out on the street and tells everybody else what this person's doing, because in this world, at this point in time, there's very few enlightened beings. So that means everybody that is unenlightened is doing something unwholesome. So what do? Do we write about everything that everybody's doing that is so unwise? So if people choose to do that, okay, up to them, but they're going to experience the results of that. That's the natural law of karma. So maybe this person is degrading and diminishing this person and exposing their corruption, but this person is doing something that's unwise too, and they're going to experience unwholesome results as well. So you've got to get to the point where you can see that and decide for yourself what it is that you would like to do.
Okay, so
Those mics back there work better. The frequency of these isn't so good.
So I guess in this case, in the case of investigative journalism, one way to think about the unwholesome karma that is being generated, or the experiencing the case of corruption,
Mm-hmm.
the unwholesome karma that a politician who's corrupt will experience is through his actions being exposed by the investigative journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one way the thing is going to come out, and the politician is going to experience unwholesome karma.
Mm-hmm.
And then the investigative journalist is going to face some unwholesome karma because they are damaging the reputation of the politician.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. So in both cases, there is some unwholesome karma
Exactly.
being exposed. But is there any wholesome karma being generated by? There's no wholesome karma being generated at this point because it's wrong speech.
Yeah, exactly. It's all based in craving, anger, and ignorance, which is what we're going to talk about after the Eightfold Path. That is, as long as you're making decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results.
And the anger, the ill will is basically expecting the politician to not do whatever they're doing.
Another word for anger is, we call it ill will.
Right.
So having ill will towards this person, wanting them to be harmed. And now you're going to write an article that's harming their reputation, and now it knocks them down. Again, we're not talking about whether someone should or shouldn't be doing these things, because that's a choice for them to make, whether they would like to do it. What I'm doing is I'm pointing out for you, this is the unwholesome karma that you're going to experience. The Buddha's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do in your life, but you can understand why people end up dead and murdered as an investigative journalist through the natural law. And then that way you decide for yourself, would you like to be doing that? Is that the type of thing that you'd like to do?
Yeah. Thank you. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to move into the next part where we move into the mental discipline section. Because without the mental discipline section, you actually wouldn't be able to practice the moral conduct section, right? Because it's one thing to sit here and talk about, yeah, you need to be gentle with your speech and not be harsh and don't gossip and don't slander. It's one thing to tell that and help you to understand how wise that is, but it's a whole nother thing to do it. Because in the heat of the moment, when your mind's in there pumping around with all the pollutions that the Buddha discovered, it's very challenging to speak gentle. So the mental discipline section is going to help you to put the moral conduct section into practice. Without the mental discipline section, you wouldn't be able to practice the moral conduct section. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So the Buddha is talking about 4 things here that you're going to need to apply effort to do. Because you're not going to be able to just purify your mind without effort. You're going to need to put effort into it. So here's the 4 things. He's teaching you to prevent unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. So an example of this is something that is not in your mind right now. The Buddha is saying apply effort to prevent that unwholesome thing to come into your mind. So like killing another human being, it's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. You have no interest in killing another human being. And what the Buddha is saying is those types of things that aren't in your mind right now, prevent them from ever coming into your mind. Because once they come into your mind, it's going to cause you to potentially act upon them. And now it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Then if there's any unwholesome mental states that have arisen in your mind, he teaches you to abandon those. Because as an unenlightened being, there are certain unwholesome mental states that are in your mind. You're going to experience those. And when you see those coming up in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to abandon those. That's how you're purifying your mind. And eventually you'll get to the point where those unwholesome qualities aren't in your mind anymore. But you're going to need to apply the effort to abandon those and get those out of your mind. An example might be like if you were in an existing relationship and you have a craving to have sex outside of your relationship. You would like to eliminate that out of your mind. Don't allow that to continue to reside in your mind. Or say you have anger, frustration, or irritation that comes up in your mind. You'd like to eliminate that out of your mind, applying the effort to do so. Then produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise. There are certain wholesome mental states that you're going to need in order to get to enlightenment, and they're not currently in your mind right now. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into your mind. An example might be generosity. Generosity is giving and sharing more than is strictly required without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. This is actually training your mind to let go, where you're no longer wanting or expecting things, not even a thank you, that you're willing to share with others without any expectation of anything in return. On the other side of this, you'd be quite selfish. Right? So you need to practice generosity from the middle. Whereas if you're sharing excessively, then you're not going to have what you need in order to sustain your life. But if you're never sharing, you're going to be quite selfish. So you'd like to come to the middle where you're actually able to practice generosity. Whereas if you know that your mind isn't very generous and you tend to have difficulty sharing with others, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality into your mind. Compassion. This is the concern for the misfortune of others. On one side of this, you will be indifferent and you could care less about what other people experience. I don't care if that person's homeless. It's not my mom or dad. I don't care. That's indifference, right? On the other side of this, you'll have worry and anxiety. It'll be like, oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What are they going to do? They're not going to be able to eat. And now you're so worried and having anxiety. So that's the two opposite sides. What the Buddha is teaching you to do is come to the middle, where you have the mental state of compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this into your mind if you're on either side of this. Okay. Then there's maintaining wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. This is something like, say, loving kindness. I suspect each one of you have loving kindness in your mind. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You probably have that in your mind, but it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. That's why you still get angry in certain situations. And then you have ill will towards that other person. So wherever you see that your anger, your hatred, your ill will is coming up, you need to apply the effort to bring in this loving kindness so you can get rid of that anger and hostility, and more this loving kindness will be permeating in your mind. You probably have sympathetic joy in your mind to a certain degree. Sympathetic joy is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is like, like the opposite of jealousy and envy, right? So if you're jealous and envious, that's because you have a craving. You want something and somebody else has got it and you want it, right? Well, you probably have sympathetic joy. Like if someone says, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. What do you think? You're like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That's a great place. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Congratulations on your trip, right? That's sympathetic joy. You have joy for their success. But maybe you're at work and somebody applies for a new job and you apply for a new job and it's the same job and they get the job instead of you. You might be jealous or envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So there's certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to support those, encourage those. Don't allow them to fade away. Bring them to full growth and full perfection, where you can have sympathetic joy in every situation. So I'm using these examples here, but what is wholesome or unwholesome that's in your mind is unique to you. So I'm just using these examples of how to actually apply right effort. But it's the next step that's going to help you to apply right effort. If it wasn't for the next step, you wouldn't be able to apply right effort. This is called right mindfulness. This is what's going to help you to be able to apply right effort. So I'll read this to you and then I'll teach it to you. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He reflects on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness." So here he's talking about four things: body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about is the four foundations of mindfulness, which I'll teach you here in a moment. But first, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. Mindfulness in general means awareness of mind. That's what you would like to develop. Awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, the things that are going through your mind. Because in the unenlightened state, you'll tend to not have awareness of what's going on in your mind. I don't know about you, but I used to just plow through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest. I was just plowing through the world. I wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't thinking about others, wasn't thinking about my mind, wasn't thinking about anything. And then next thing I know, I started smelling smoke, and I look behind me and I'm like, who knocked down all those trees? And who lit that fire? And then I learned about right view, and I was like, oh my gosh, I knocked down those trees and I lit that fire, right? It was all me that was doing all that, right? So what you would like to start with, maybe for the first 3 months or so, is just build some awareness of mind, where you're aware of the thoughts and ideas and feelings that are going through your mind. This word mindfulness has made its way into modern conversations, and you'll hear people use it quite often, but they're not using it in the way that the Buddha used it. And whether they use it that way or not, it's a choice for them to make. But if you would like to learn how the Buddha got to enlightenment, you'd like to start using this language in the way that the Buddha used it. So what people will tend to say is they will say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's what they're saying. They're replacing the word careful with mindful. But that's not how the Buddha used this word. The Buddha used it as awareness of mind. That's what you need to be able to develop. So even though other people use it as careful, I would encourage you to use it as awareness of mind. And that's what mindfulness means. But then in more detail, you would like to learn the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You're going to need to develop this, where you have awareness of what's called the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Okay? So what this is this is the life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take, and you need to be aware of this. So for example, before the mind experiences anger, there's some bodily sensations that you may or may not even be aware of right now. It's tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull, right? This is the early warning system alerting you you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. And if you can clue into this and have mindfulness or awareness of mind that this is occurring, that means whenever you're starting to notice that, you can apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. Preserving your mind, protecting your mind. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. It hasn't even become a feeling yet. It's just a bodily sensation. And if you do this enough, you'll get to the point where you don't have any anger. It just doesn't arise, not even the bodily sensations. But you're going to need to really clue into this and notice it, because the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, they all have bodily sensations. So some people, they experience that tingling across the shoulders, up the back of the neck, over the skull. Some people call this warm fuzzies. And it's like, oh, that feels so good. That's the pleasant feelings, right? And you kind of indulge in that, right? But you're going to need to cut that off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to form that conditioned pleasant feeling. Then there's the painful feelings, right? And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant, like shyness. You have queasiness in your stomach. That's the bodily sensations associated with this discontentedness. So you'd like to clue into that more and more and cut it off and let it go and prevent it from ever coming into a feeling. So you're going to need to develop your practice more and more to be able to do this. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from Australia to Indonesia and you're out in the middle of the sea, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. You've got to get it out. So if you allow the anger to come into the mind, you've got a real problem to deal with now. You got to get it out, right? So if you can prevent it from ever getting into the mind never forms the feeling. So that early warning system, that bodily sensations, is like the mind saying, I'm about to get a feeling here. I'm about to experience a feeling. I'm about to experience a feeling. And you say, nope, not going to let you do that. That's your right effort. Nope, not going to let you do that. You're not going to form that feeling. So essentially what you're doing is you're rewiring the mind to no longer form inner feelings based on external circumstances. And if you do this enough over a consistent long-term period, you won't experience these discontent feelings. There's no arising of anger. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger. Even if they tried to make themselves angry, they wouldn't be able to. Their mind just won't do it. It physically is incapable of experiencing anger. So you would like to get a hold of this by paying attention to the bodily sensations and cutting it off and letting it go there. But sometimes you're going to miss it because your mind's not fully trained yet. It's going to become a feeling. Right now, your mind's angry and frustrated. So if you missed it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. If you miss it as a feeling, now it's going to affect the condition of your mind. This is where you've been angry or grumpy or irritable for like a couple of hours or a couple of days. I'm sure you've experienced this, right? You've been grumpy and irritable like a week or two, right? You just wake up and you're just grumpy and irritable. That's because the mind had some craving, desire, attachment that got triggered. There was bodily sensations and you didn't cut it off and let it go. Then it became a feeling and you didn't cut it off and let it go. And then it affected the condition of the mind. And now you walked around for a few days or a week or so grumpy and irritable. And it's no fun doing that, right? So you'd like to notice that and cut it off and let it go. And then there's something called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. All the 10 fetters that the Buddha taught, they're all mental objects. So, for example, ill will. This is a deeply rooted container in your mind. Like right now, you don't have any anger probably. You're just sitting here listening to somebody speak. But there's this deeply rooted container of ill will in your mind. If someone triggers it, if there's some contact that triggers it, where you're experiencing some contact and it triggers your craving, desire, attachment, this ill will can come up in the mind because of that deeply rooted container, that mental object. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is put a blockade at the bodily sensations, not allowing your mind to continue to experience these feelings. But then you're going to need to purify the mind of these mental objects and get them out of the mind so that the mind now no longer experiences anger and frustration. It's kind of like taking a jackhammer and jackhammering the mental objects out of your mind and cleaning it out, right? So it requires you to be able to understand and practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And it can take you multiple years to even get to the point where you can understand these and practice them readily every single moment of your day, right? So you're going to need to develop these 4 foundations to be able to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. That's why this retreat that's coming up in August, I'm going to be teaching you all the mental objects. I'm going to teach you what they are. I'm going to teach you the symptoms of them. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate them and how to know that you've actually eliminated them, because you can't develop awareness of the mental objects if you don't know what they are and what the symptoms are. So that's what I'm going to be teaching in August. Okay, so this is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Then there's something called right concentration, because you wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness without right concentration. You're going to need this. This here is a description of the jhanas, which are 4 preliminary phases that you experience on your way to the first stage of enlightenment. I'm not going to read this to you here because this is a class that's helping you to understand how to practice this right concentration. What the Buddha is describing here is he's describing the results of having put together the entire Eightfold Path. But when he teaches about how to actually practice right concentration, this is found in other parts of his teachings. In other parts of his teachings, he talks about 2 things that are part of right concentration. It's developing a daily meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind in day-to-day life. This is how you develop right concentration. So you're going to need a meditation practice of 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. Understanding it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this. But gradually, slowly but surely, you start with breathing mindfulness meditation, and then you bring in loving kindness meditation. And now you build up your practice to 2 or 3 sessions for about 30 minutes. And that can sound like a lot for some people, depending on what you got going on in your life. But you could probably scale back on certain things like searching social media or YouTube videos. You can scale that stuff back to a certain degree and you'll have a lot more time in your life. So you would like to build up your meditation practice because that's what's going to help you to build your mindfulness, your awareness of mind, right? And these other qualities that you need. Then you'd like to practice singleness of mind. Singleness of mind is doing just one thing at a time. You might have been taught to multitask. This isn't possible. Your mind actually can't multitask. What you're actually doing is you're doing one thing for like 3 to 5 seconds, and you're switching to another for like 8 seconds. You're switching to another for 2 or 3 seconds, and your mind's racing around the horse track, essentially, is what you're doing. And then you get home at the end of your day, and it's hard to relax. You're feeling stress. It's like a horse that races around a racetrack. If you go to the barn, they're not calm. They're not relaxed. They're hyped up, because they've been racing around the racetrack. So if you do that all day with your life and your mind is constantly bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, you're not going to be able to have a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. So you'd like to learn how to do just one thing at a time, right? The way that I think about this is that if you're, say, washing dishes and your mind's wandering and you're thinking about, I don't know, going to Thailand and having a great vacation in Thailand, you'd like to cut that off and let that go. Come back to whatever it is that you're focusing on with the dishes. Because if you're sitting there washing dishes and your mind's wandering, next thing you know, you cut yourself on the hand and you've got to go to the hospital. You got to get stitches. This is the unwholesome karma, right? Or say you're in a business meeting and your mind's wandering and thinking about going to Thailand. That's not helping you, because you need to focus on the business meeting and do a really good job there, right? So cut that off, apply right effort. So you're using your right mindfulness to be aware of your mind. And then when you see it's not practicing singleness of mind, cut that off and come back by applying right effort, right? So this is what you would like to be doing on a regular basis. And if you do this enough, eventually your mind will just always be focused. It'll always be concentrated. It'll be impossible for your mind to not be focused and concentrated. So the way I think about it is, if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding that steel rod back and forth, at the beginning, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a nice groove going. And when it pops out, you're going to know it and you're going to bring it right back. Right? And now you keep going back and forth with this steel rod. Eventually, you're going to get such a deep groove going that it's never going to pop out because it's too deep in the groove, right? So that's the way your mind functions as well. So anytime you see your mind wandering, you would like to cut that off and let it go and come back to whatever it is you're focused on. That's what's going to produce the wholesome results for you, because now you can access your wisdom. There's people right now that are dead that didn't realize that they should be practicing singleness of mind. That's the unwholesome karma. They were walking down the street, they were talking on the phone, they walked out in front of a car and whack, or they walked out in front of a bus and whack. They weren't paying attention. This is the unwholesome karma. It's not punishments and rewards. Nobody's punishing them for this. It's the results of your own decisions. And if you don't realize that you just need to be doing one thing at a time, you'll make unwise decisions like this. And next thing you know, you're experiencing unwholesome karma. So you'd like to just do one thing at a time. Just focus on one thing. Okay? That's all your mind can do anyway. So just to summarize this, there's right effort, which is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. Then there's right mindfulness, which is awareness of mind with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You need to have awareness of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, but more specifically, be aware of those bodily sensations, the early warning system that's alerting you that you're about to experience discontentedness. Be aware of the feelings, aware of the condition of your mind, and ultimately the mental objects. Then you'd like to develop right concentration, where you develop your meditation practice and just doing one thing at a time. Just all the time, just doing one thing at a time. Your mind's going to bounce around a lot when you first get started, but now more and more, you just need to focus and be concentrated. And that's what's going to help you to be able to now bring all the other teachings into practice. Because if you were talking on the phone, watching TV, and eating a sandwich, how can you practice right speech with your mom? Right? Next thing you know, you're on the phone arguing with your mom, and now the whole conversation blows up because you're not practicing right speech. Right? You need to be able to access your wisdom to be able to bring forth the right speech. But you can't do that if your mind's jumping around from phone call to TV to sandwich, phone call, TV to sandwich. So you'd like to just do one thing at a time. Okay? So this is the Eightfold Path. Any questions on the mental discipline section? No questions here? Okay, so this is going to take you a good amount of time to learn it and dial it into your life closer and closer. There's a study guide on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You click on free books. I have a study guide there to help you to be able to learn this, because you're going to need to commit this to your memory. Normally, the first several months of a person's practice, they're just working on learning this. Right? So you're going to need to have books and the audiobooks, the videos, the podcasts. You'll probably need to hear me teach it a few times. You're going to need to ask questions and try to understand how to apply it in any situation. You're really trying to get your arms around the Eightfold Path when you first get started on this journey. So I suggest you to really work with this and try to get it committed to your memory, because you can't practice it if you don't have it committed to your memory.
Question. I want to know the difference between mind and the mental objects.
So when the Buddha is saying mind as mind, he's referring to the condition of your mind. That's what that means. The mental objects are the fetters, which you haven't learned yet because you haven't taken the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course. But if you look in this book, Volume 1, Chapter 3, you're going to see all the fetters in there. Those are the mental objects. Those are the deeply rooted containers in the mind, like ill will is one of them. Conceit is another one, like arrogance and pride. This is not a condition of the mind. It's a mental object, a deeply rooted container in the mind. So there's the condition of the mind, like the general condition. So for example, when you have a feeling, the mind experiences anger in that moment. But now if it lasts for more than a second, it's affecting the condition of your mind. For several minutes, several hours, several days, you're grumpy and irritable. The grumpy and irritability, that's the condition of the mind. The feeling was the anger, but the mental object is the ill will. That's what those things are. And you need to have awareness of each one of those things. You're welcome. Okay, so this is what I was planning to teach you guys this morning. What we normally do here is we take a lunch break, and then when we come back, I teach you the three poisons, 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. But I'm going to give you guys an option here. Because we're a smaller class, we could take a break and come back after lunch, and I can teach you guys the 3 poisons. Or if you guys would like, I can shorten that topic down to about 20 minutes, and I could teach it to you, and then we could be done for the day. So let me ask you guys, raise your hand if you would like to go ahead and learn now, and then be done for the day in about 20 minutes. Okay. So that's everybody. Okay. All right. So that's what I'll do then. I'm just going to keep teaching. If you guys need a bathroom break or you need a little snack or something or some water, go ahead, because this topic of the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, you can learn this really easily now because you just learned the 4 noble truths. It's really easy to teach you this. Okay. Normally when I'm teaching this from scratch, I'll take about an hour to teach it. But because you guys just learned what you learned, I can actually shrink it down really small. Okay. So the 3 poisons or 3 unwholesome roots or 3 fires, this is actually helping you to understand why you make all the decisions that you make and why you experience the unwholesome results that you experience. You guys were just learning about craving, but there's more that's going on in the mind than just craving. That's not the only cause of your problems. So the 4 noble truths gives you a little window into understanding what's going on in the mind, but this topic is going to kind of broaden that and deepen it for you, because the 3 poisons help you understand why you experience the certain difficulties and struggles over and over and over again. Because whenever you're making decisions through these 3 poisons, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So we were just talking about craving, but then we are also talking a little bit about anger, and now we're going to also be talking about this ignorance or this unknowing of true reality. What the unenlightened mind has is these 3 poisons. At the deepest level of detail, when the Buddha talks about the pollutions of the mind, he talks about them as the 10 fetters. These are 10 individual pollutions. But at a high level, we talk about them as 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots. This is craving, anger, and ignorance. Some people call it greed, hatred, and delusion. Craving is the mind's longing, yearning, the chasing after the objects of its affection, the wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. And you can only be happy if you get things your way. This is what we were just talking about with the 4 noble truths that you guys probably understand now. So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, that's when the anger is arising, the frustration, the agitation, the annoyance. And that's where you become unskillful. You push people away, or you push a situation away. That's called aversion. Or you're bitter, harsh, and hostile to people with your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or you put expectations on people and trying to pressure them and get them to do things your way. That's what the mind's doing because of its craving. That when it experiences this anger, it doesn't like those painful feelings, and it firmly believes that it's something external that's causing it. So that's why it's pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting expectations on people. So while there's craving and anger that's in the mind, that's plaguing the mind, and you keep experiencing this over and over and over again, The whole reason why craving and anger exist is because of the ignorance, the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. Now, some people refer to this as ignorance, and I use that word, but I don't tend to use it because the unknowing of true reality is a better way to describe this. People are translating the words of the Buddha from Pali into English, and the Buddha wouldn't have referred to someone as ignorant. An enlightened being doesn't talk about people as ignorant or stupid or foolish. Instead, he's going to use phrases like the unknowing of true reality or the lack of wisdom, the confusion, right? Calling someone ignorant is a degrading and diminishing way to refer to somebody, and the Buddha wouldn't have talked about somebody in that way. But what your mind has is it has this lack of wisdom. It has confusion. It has misunderstanding. That in the unenlightened state, we will firmly believe that it's other people who are causing us to be angry, and we will hold on to that, thinking that that's really true. But you need to be able to arise wisdom to see through that. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. It's this lack of wisdom. If it wasn't for this lack of wisdom, then you would have already seen that craving is the true problem and the cause of your problem, and that's what's arising the anger. But because of the ignorance, the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger. So that's why on this path to enlightenment, your ultimate goal is to arise wisdom, because that's the exact opposite of ignorance. If you can arise wisdom and you can see the truth, now you can actually transform your mind. So in terms of getting to the point where your mind's peaceful and joyful, you got to get these pollutions out of the mind. So that's why it all starts with wisdom and cultivation of wisdom. So we have these three poisons, or these three unwholesome roots, which are craving, anger, and ignorance. This is what's plaguing the mind and keeping it in the unenlightened state, continuing to experience anger over and over and over and over again, because it just lacks wisdom. But then there's these wholesome qualities, which are the exact opposites. The opposite of craving is to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing with the people around you, being willing to share your resources, right? But remember, you need to do that from the middle way. You're living open-handedly, being joyful with other people, sharing with them. That's the opposite of craving, because craving, you'll have selfishness. It's my money, my clothes, my food, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, mine, 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 mine. But the opposite of that is live open-handedly, share with other people. The opposite of anger and hostility and bitterness is loving kindness, right? Where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Then there's the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, the confusion, the misunderstanding. The opposite of that is wisdom. So what you're doing here on this path is you're gradually bringing down craving, anger, and ignorance. You're gradually diminishing that through all the teachings of the Buddha. Then you're training your mind to increase the generosity, the loving kindness, and the wisdom. That's what you're doing on this path. And eventually you'll get to the point where your mind's fully wise. That's what it means to be awake, that your mind has fully cultivated the wisdom of the natural laws, and you now fully understand the world that you're living in. Because when you're struggling with anger and stress and anxiety, it's because you live in a world that you don't understand. The way to solve that is to cultivate wisdom about the world around you. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is how to understand this mind and understand the world around you. So this is the three poisons in a summary format. In fact, that was maybe 5 minutes, right? I thought it was going to take 20 minutes, but I just did it in about 5. So you guys understand? The problem isn't just craving. It's not just craving. That's not the only thing. There's these other things too that you need to combat, which is anger and this ignorance. So that's why you're always working to cultivate wisdom, and you're never believing anybody about the path to enlightenment, including me. Don't believe me. Don't believe the books. Don't believe anything. You've got to be able to independently verify all of this to be able to get to the truth so that you can have wisdom. Okay? All right. So tomorrow, I'm going to be starting with teaching you guys loving kindness meditation. So instead of starting with meditation, I'm actually going to teach you loving kindness meditation first. Then we're going to actually do loving kindness meditation. afterwards, I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings. Because today you learned how craving is a problem and you need to solve this. But how can you eliminate your cravings if you don't even know what they are? You need to be able to identify them. So I'm going to teach you how to go in and almost surgically remove them, because the Eightfold Path is kind of like a general training for the whole mind. It's kind of like a painting with a wide brush. But what I'm going to teach you tomorrow is like going in with a surgical implement to be able to surgically remove some of these cravings. Then there's the thing that we're going to do in the afternoon, but we'll probably be able to do this before lunch tomorrow. We'll probably have an early day as well. That I'm going to teach you the 4 healthy mental states. I'll be able to teach you all of this before lunch. So even though it's kind of planned this way, sometimes there's very large classes and I get lots of questions and it takes us all the way into the afternoon. But with a small class like this, even with your questions, we can usually finish up by lunchtime. Okay, so that's our plan for tomorrow. These 4 healthy mental states are going to help you to eliminate certain symptoms in your mind. So have a very lovely rest of your day, and perhaps I'll see you guys later, okay? Sawadee Kap. You're welcome.